is going on? This is Weld with the 419 Irregulars. I'm going to be doing a loadout review today. My role on the team is enforcer. It's my job to pretty much make as much noise as possible to draw attention away from the rest of my teammates, whether it be with a riot shield or just getting as much let out as possible. Starting out will be the soft goods I use in the field, such as knee pads and just general clothing. Starting from the top down, I have my, this is the 419's uniform shirt. We have some Velcro pads to put morale patches, as well as each individual team's title. Mine's Weld. And 419 and is 419 on the other side. Moving on from there, I have some motocross elbow and forearm guards. I personally like using these over just regular elbow guards because I like having extra protection on my arms. Makes it easier to brace up against certain objects, such as a windowsill. Coming at it with an exposed arm, it's not the most comfortable. But with one of these two are together, but if it was just one, you'd have something better to rest against while holding a rifle against the windowsill. Normally you wouldn't want a whole lot of hard armor, like hard plastic or metal in some cases. When a paintball hits something hard, it is more likely to break, and paintball has to break for you to be marked out. When I get shot in my arms, it generally breaks anyway, and I get shot in my arms a lot. So for me, having something hard there doesn't really make a difference. Moving down, on my belt, I typically have a Tip-X in a universal large pistol holster. This is my go-to sidearm. From there, I also wear BDU pants. Now you can wear just about whatever fits you the best, or fits your needs the best on the field, but I personally prefer BDUs because they're meant for moving around a lot. However, if you do get BDUs, be careful where you get them from, because the really cheap ones, those are often not made at very good quality. I got mine from a military surplus store nearby, and they've served me well on the field. I've not had any issues with them tearing. I mean, they get stained, but that doesn't really bother me. Knee and shin guards. These are essential to me because I run the shield when I can, and what's the most exposed part of your body when you're moving around with a shield? Your shins. Made the mistake of going to a game without shin guards, and I regretted that for the rest of the week. As for footwear, you can use just about any kind of hiking boot, or if you are able to get combat boots, those are also good. But something you might not think to wear that you should is athletic socks. Those, in my opinion, are highly essential for being on the field. If you haven't used athletic socks, use them. Your feet will thank you. I personally like to have a vest rather than all my gear on my belt because I'm not moving around as much as some other players. My go-to is a green mole vest. I have a lot of magazine pouches along the front because that's where I'm going to be typically reaching to get at my stuff. On the back I have this pouch for putting an air tank in, because whenever I run a bigger gun, I like to use a remote line rather than have the tank on the gun itself. That added weight, I just am not a fan of it. So this way, I never have to worry about air, and my gun is a bit lighter while I'm using it. Also, you might be wondering why I have very large magazine pouches on the back of my vest. Each one of these can fit roughly 3 to 4 rifle mags. I do that as extra ammo for my teammates. If they've run out of ammo, they know they can come to me and just snag one off the back and drop their dead mag in it. So that helps keep the rest of my team with ammo. Also, there's a pistol mag pouch on the front. I typically keep a Tip-X mag in there. When I use my Tip-X as a sidearm, I typically don't need a whole lot of magazines, just like 3 at the most. It's kind of a backup. There's one other vest that I use, or have used. I don't use it much anymore, and I'll explain why. This black vest is a Condor airsoft vest, but it can be used for paintballing as well. I used to use this a lot, but I later began to see the faults in it. It is not like a regular mole vest. You can't move any of the pouches on it. And one such complaint that I have with it, I will show you. I reload my magazines with my left hand. I'll use my TNC as a... I'll show you with this. So, and all of the rifle mag pouches are on the right side, and there's one that's all the way like along your kidney area, and that one is much harder to reach unless you reach down with your right hand and load it that way, which is just awkward as hell for me. So this black vest, I'm not a big fan of these preset vests that you cannot customize. But use whatever works for you. Moving on to masks and other protection. I have two masks that I typically use. I have a dye I4 mask. I like this one because it's very compact, very lightweight. Something that works out for me because I wear glasses and I need my glasses to fit inside the goggles. There is no padding along the sides, so it doesn't pinch the sides of my glasses, makes it much more comfortable for me. So if you're somebody that wears glasses on the field, these are very comfortable while wearing glasses. Also, for wearing glasses, these have a fan on the inside, Haber Vision fan, and I don't know if this was intentional, but how it mounts to your goggles is from the inside. There are two bolts that go up through this mesh area, and then you put two nuts on the top. Those two bolts actually line up perfectly with a GoPro bicycle rail mount, so if you're using the Haber Vision vent fan, you can very easily attach a GoPro mount to the top. And the other set of goggles that I use these are just some standard JT goggles. I also have a visor for the top if I'm playing outdoors. I also have a fan on these, as well as a yellow tinted visor. I would highly recommend getting a tinted visor and not just a clear one. It really helps cut out a lot of glare and just makes highlight areas easier to see in. Both have GoPro mounts, but one has it on the top and the other has it, the JTs have it on the muzzle. There's different reasons for that. If you're running a gun with a hopper on it instead of mag-fed, having a muzzle mount I think is much more convenient because you won't get blocked by your hopper as often, especially if your hopper is in the middle of your gun and not off to the side like some. But if you're not using a hopper, it's probably better to have it on the top of your goggles rather than the front. On the muzzle, it catches much more of your gun and your hands and what you're actually doing while moving, so it can make your video a little more interesting. You're going to always want to have some sort of neck protection, because if you take a paintball to your bare neck, that is really going to hurt and could also leave a really bad mark. Just about anything that's soft will work. I typically use a shemagh. You can get these online or at a military surplus store if they have them. I'm sure there's other vendors. Just wrap it around your neck a few times. It will keep you from taking any injuries there. Last thing I wear, kind of just as a vanity item, my call sign is Weld. This is actually a welder's beanie. It does its job. Now we'll get to the markers that I typically use on the field. Starting off is the Tippmann TMC. This is honestly my go-to at this point because it has a lot of good features. HK on the 419 went over this marker in more detail, so if you want some really good info about it, check out his loadout review. Mine, I'll be a little more broad. So, one cool feature about this marker is that it can actually be switched between hopper-fed and mag-fed fairly quickly. Not like in the middle of a game quickly, but in between matches if you want to try out mag-fed versus hopper and see which one you like more. It's as simple as pulling a part off the side and swapping the magazine. I also have a 40mm launcher on this. I do not currently have a shell, but there are different types of shells you can get for it. It's good for having like a little master key for if you come into a room, you can just quickly squeeze off a few rounds that spread out. There do exist smoke grenades that fit into the tube, and you can use a charged CO2 shell for launching that. Currently, I also just have the stock barrel on my TMC, but I will be looking at getting a upgraded barrel in the future. I mentioned I like using remote line. I like the reduced weight that it provides. I like that for a mag-fed marker. Now let's talk about my go-to hopper fed. This is a Stanford X7. It has a integral cyclone hopper, and I added the foregrip on because I prefer to have my hand upright rather than flat, but grabbing it by the mag well isn't always the most practical. So for me, having a foregrip is just more comfortable. This thing fires really fast, apex barrel on it. I have actually gotten a couple of hook shot eliminations with this. Freaks the hell out of people when you actually do that. I don't know if it's just my marker, but this doesn't work very well when you're using a remote line. I don't know if that's because the remote line doesn't feed air into it as fast, or if it's just simply the fact that this marker is kind of dated. I did this paint job. I like to customize my markers in this manner, and you can too, but do be careful, because if you're not careful about how you do a paint job on these, you can actually hurt its functionality. I've seen people that just don't bother taking it apart and just spray it in place, and they wonder why it's constantly jamming. I have a TCR. This is one that I really like. It's compact, and it comes with a lot of added features. It does not come with a red dot sight, but you can pick up a red dot sight fairly cheap online. There's hundreds of different kinds out there, so take your pick, read the reviews, see what works for you. It comes with a foregrip that folds down. Internally, a TCR is identical to a Tip-X. Really nice feature about this is back here you'll notice this odd part on the stock. That is for keeping a spare magazine. So when your magazine up front is out, you have your secondary one back here. A lot of people like to refer to that as the oh shit magazine. Typically you would just take a magazine off your vest if you had one, but if you're either out or or someone's coming at you fast and you don't have enough time to reach for it, you just be like, oh jeez, and good to go. The stock is highly adjustable. You can put it to whatever position suits you the best very easily with a button on the back. Another feature is that this actually comes first strike ready. The regular Tip-X does not come first strike ready. So it comes with a lot of added features. A lot of them are quite useful. Moving on from that, I have a M17 with a vector kit. HK also did a pretty good description of the M17, so again, check out his video if you want more details on it. Mine has a vector kit on it. What that does is that actually allows this marker to use Zeta mags. Zeta mags are kind of like the best extended mag you can get for a Tip-X. How they work is when they're fully loaded, this part stays locked at the bottom until you load it into a marker, but something you have to make sure that you do that I have forgotten to do many times is before you start shooting, you have to pull this little part, slotted part at the bottom, to unlock it. Otherwise you'll just be shooting blanks and you'll be wondering why it's not working. They load from the top and bottom, so when the 10 rounds that you load into one tube are empty, to reload, you take the mag out, flip it around, stick it back in, pull the bottom, now it's good to go. Once both tubes are empty, then you have to get a whole new mag, but that adds up to 20 rounds per magazine. A standard Tip-X mag is only 7, so it pays off. to have Zetamags. There's one downside to the Vector kit, and that is that it only allows the marker to use Zetamags. It can't use 13 round mags or standard Tipp-X 7 round mags, and that is because the Zetamags have extra slots on the back, and this functions by latching onto those on the back of the magazine, not the front. The standard Tipp-X mags are designed to latch onto this front notch here. The Vector latches onto the one back here. So it is kind of a downside, but if you have a lot of Zetamags, it's not much of a problem. My standard Tipp-X. Again, this is just a standard Tipp-X other than paint job that I added. The barrel is a standard barrel, however, I do have it bored for a freak insert that allows you to widen or reduce the diameter of your barrel based on what insert you have into it. I can show you that in a second. That would be this part right here. So they make these in different diameters to reduce or expand the diameter of your barrel. So based on what paint you're using, it'll determine what kind of insert you want to make sure that that your round is not bouncing around as much inside of your barrel. I have two more Tipp-X's to talk about, however each one has different features on it. All of my Tipp-X pistols are set up remote line ready. However, these two have different attachments on them. This one has a Umarax kit, which adds rails to the top, both sides of the marker, as well as a stock, which I find very handy. It's very compact and it's a very good way to use this pistol. On the other one, I have a Sarge kit. The Umarax was not actually designed for a Tipp-X, but it does work with it with some modifications. The Sarge kit was specifically made for the Tipp-X, so it fits much better on it and is a bit more stable. Also, it has more metal parts. The Umarax, honestly, the only metal thing on it is the spring. This has a metal stock, metal attachment back here, and a metal muzzle. I do like the feel of the Sarge kit more, however, it does have one major draw that bothers me. In order to fold the stock back up from having it shouldered, you would have to take it off your shoulder, turn your hand upside down, grab it like so, and then fold the stock along the side of the marker. Umarax, on the other hand, you would have to still unshoulder it. However, you don't have to turn your hand upside down. You can keep your hand in this position, and it's much easier to pull it up and push it to the side. Also, for unfolding the stock with the Umarax, it's as simple as just grabbing the stock and pulling it out. The Sarge kit, on the other hand, is not like that. You have to actually undo the mechanism from behind, which can be a bit cumbersome with it being so close. You can't wrap your hand around the stock itself. So it takes a little longer, but I suppose considering if you're in the middle of a firefight, you're probably not going to need to be folding and unfolding the stock that rapidly. However, you may have noticed I have a sling on this one. That's because in some matches I like to have this one folded up in this position as a secondary. So if I have my TMC on a separate sling and it runs out of ammo, I can quickly throw it behind me and pull this up, and if all of a sudden I realize, oh, that's out of ammo, I need to use something else, this can now become my primary, assuming I have enough magazines for it. That is my opinion on the Umarax versus the Sarge kit. I have 4 guns that are pretty much that are identical on the inside, and a 5th one that uses the same magazines. That's something I like, because then that means I don't have to have several different kinds of magazines for my MagFed markers. I can just have one type that will work in all of them, so if one fails, I'm not SOL if they're all using the same magazine. Actually, due to the fact that I didn't clean it at the time, this one did fail on me during a game, but I didn't have to leave the game in order to go get a different marker. I just left that one where it was, took the magazines right out of this marker, and used them on my Tip X, and it was good. Last but not least is a little piece of hardware I really enjoy using, is the Valken Thunder bang grenades. They function similar to a flash grenade, a flashbang, just they do not flash, they just bang, but believe me when I say it is still a very good distraction device. I actually scared the hell out of a lot of people using one of these at the last game I was at. Nobody knew I had them, so when all of a sudden they heard I think they're rated for 130 decibels, a 130 decibel boom on the field, everybody freaked out. And who freaked out the most were the people in the building that I threw it into. They actually called themselves out because they didn't want to deal with someone running in and shooting them while their ears were ringing. These lines on the top and bottom of the shell, these do not come standard. These are actually attachments that you screw on. I can't take the other one off unless I take the core out, but what these do is they eliminate the weak points at the top and bottom of the cylinder, so it prevents the grenade from detonating early. If it detonates early, it's also not going to be as loud, and it'll go out with more of a poof than a bang. And that's very dissatisfying, if you know what I mean. One last thing I'll go over that I use is a riot shield. You can get these for roughly $60 online. I do not know of any local vendors you could possibly get these from. They will hold up against paintball strikes quite well. As you can see, this one has gotten a lot of use. It's pretty dirty. But also, MagFit Society rule about shields is that you cannot use anything other than a pistol with a shield. Using, example, a pistol with a shield, I find this very easy. This is also why I have a remote line set up for all my Tip X's. So I don't have to worry about swapping out a CO2 cartridge mid-battle while holding a shield. It is not very easy. If you do like recording your footage with either a GoPro or some kind of camera, don't put your GoPro on the front of your shield, or don't put your camera on the front of your shield. I tried to, that's why there's this little gray spot that's actually a sticky pad from what I tried to use, and it fell off in roughly 10 minutes of playing. I planted my shield down, and it fell right on the floor. Mount your GoPro to the back of the shield on the inside. That will keep your camera from getting shot, as well as keep it from getting loose from all the paint hitting it. And it should be able to see through the clear plastic fairly well as long as you keep it clean. I like these plastic shields because they're very lightweight. You can find bigger or different models, but this one I personally like the best. There are some that are like completely see-through on the top and bottom, but once they get scratched up, you can't see through anything. That concludes the loadout that I typically use on the field, and that concludes this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the field.